The rain hadn't stopped for hours. It wasn't the soft, comforting kind of rain that lulled you into sleep. It was a relentless downpour, sheets of water slamming against the windshield, the wipers barely keeping up. I gripped the steering, wheel tighter, knuckles pale in the dim glow of the dashboard lights, as the two-lane road stretched endlessly ahead into the pitch-black countryside. I was driving back from visiting my parents, a late-night trip I'd regretted almost as soon as I got on the highway. The forecast had called for light showers, not the torrential storm that now surrounded me. Every so often, lightning forked across the sky, illuminating the road for the briefest second before plunging me back into darkness. My phone had no signal. The radio was nothing but static. The low fuel light blinked on. I cursed under my breath. I hadn't passed a gas station in at least 30 miles. The thought of running out of gas in the middle of nowhere, in this weather, was enough to make my stomach knot. I slowed down, scanning for any sign, any flicker of neon, any structure that might indicate civilization. That's when I saw it, a small sign on the side of the road, half hidden by overgrown weeds. GS 2 miles. The building appeared. Like a ghost out of the rain, a squat, one-story structure with a flickering fluorescent sign that barely lit up the gravel lot. One ancient-looking pump stood under a rusting metal awning, swaying slightly in the wind. The windows were dark. There were no other cars. I pulled in hesitantly, wipers squealing as I turned them off. For a moment, the world was silent except for the drumming of rain on the roof of my car. The pump looked older than me. No card reader, no digital display, just a mechanical dial and a handwritten note taped to the side. Pay inside. I glanced toward the building. The door was slightly ajar, swinging gently in the wind. A yellowish light glowed faintly from within. Something about it felt wrong. I told myself I was being ridiculous. It was a storm, I was tired, and every abandoned place looks creepy in the dark. I popped my hood, dashed through the rain, and started pumping gas. The wind carried strange sounds, whistling through the awning, something rattling against the metal siding. Or maybe footsteps. I froze, glancing toward the door. It was still open, swinging slightly. The dim light inside flickered. Then I saw him. A figure stood just beyond the threshold, silhouetted by the sickly glow. He was tall and possibly thin, wearing what looked like an old raincoat that clung to his frame. His head was tilted at an unnatural angle, like he was studying me. I blinked, and he was gone. My heart hammered in my chest. Maybe it was a trick of the light, maybe I was just exhausted. But when I finished pumping gas, I couldn't force myself to walk inside to pay. Instead, I grabbed a 20 from my wallet, dashed to the door, and tossed it onto the counter without stepping fully inside. "Hello?" I called, voice trembling. 20 on pump 1. No answer. I turned and practically sprinted back to my car, sliding into the driver's seat and locking the doors. My hand shook as I jammed the key into the ignition. That's when I heard it, a faint tapping. On the back window, I whipped around, heart in my throat. Nothing, just rain streaking down the glass. Distorted shapes in the darkness beyond. I told myself to drive. Just drive. I floored it, gravel spitting out behind me as I tore down the road. The gas station vanishing into the night, but the feeling didn't leave me. The sense of being watched. The certainty that if I checked the rear view mirror, I'd see someone sitting in the back seat. I didn't look. Not once. I didn't stop until I reached the next town, hours later. When I finally pulled into a brightly lit diner, the fluorescent safety of normalcy washing over me. I dared to glance and the back seat got empty. Of course. I laughed shakily, convincing myself it had been nerves. Exhaustion. An overactive imagination fueled by too many late-night horror stories. But then, as I closed the door behind me and hurried toward the diner, I saw it, a single wet footprint, leading away from my car. The rain started just after midnight. I'd been lying in bed for hours, staring at the ceiling, listening to the occasional car pass on the distant highway. My house sat on the edge of town, past where the streetlights ended, surrounded by empty fields that turned to pitch black at night. It wasn't unusual to feel isolated out here, but that night, as the wind began to howl and the first drops of rain struck my window, the silence felt heavier, suffocating. By 1 a.m., the storm was in full force. Sheets of rain battered the siding, wind rattled the old shutters, and thunder rolled endlessly overhead. I had turned off my bedside lamp, thinking maybe the darkness would lull me to sleep. Instead, it amplified everything. The creak of the floorboards settling, the faint whistle of air through the gaps in the windows. And then, faintly, something else. A knock. 3 sharp taps against the glass. I froze. My bedroom window was on the second floor. No porch roof, no nearby tree branches that could scrape against it. Just empty air and the slick wall of the house. I told myself it was my imagination. Thunder, wind, maybe even hail. But then it came again. Deliberate, rhythmic. Tap. 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 I sat up, heart pounding, straining to listen over the storm. Knocks stopped. Silence except for rain hammering the roof. I waited, breath shallow, every nerve on edge. Minutes passed. Just when I thought I might have dreamed it. Another knock. Louder this time. Closer. I slid out of bed as quietly as I could, feet finding the floorboards I knew wouldn't creak. The window was directly across the room. The curtains hung still, no movement from wind. My hand trembled as I reached for them. I yanked them open. Lightning flashed. For a split second, I saw a face. Pale skin, wide, unblinking eyes. Mouth stretched into something between a snarl. It was pressed flat against the glass on the second floor. Rain streaming down over its features. And then the lightning was gone, plunging the room back into darkness. I stumbled backward, hitting the nightstand. A lamp crashed to the floor, bulb shattering. My breathing was ragged, chest tight. I grabbed my phone. No signal. Not even a single bar. Another knock. Harder now, rattling the window in its frame. I bolted for the door. As I hit the hallway, every light in the house flickered and died. The hum of the refrigerator cut off. The heater went silent. The storm outside felt deafening in the sudden darkness. I ran downstairs, fumbling for the front door. My only thought was to get out. Get to a neighbor, anyone. But when I reached the entry, I froze. The door was wide open. Rain blew in, pooling on the hardwood floor. The wind carried the smell of wet earth, of something metallic, coppery. My bare feet stuck to the slick surface as I crept forward. Hello? My voice cracked. The storm swallowed it instantly. I stepped outside onto the porch. Lightning lit up the empty fields, wind bending the tall grass in violent waves. There was no movement. No figure waiting in the rain. I turned back toward the door and saw muddy footprints on the floor, leading inside. I ran. Not upstairs. Not into another room. Straight out into the rain, barefoot and blind, until I reached the road. My neighbor's house was half a mile away, but I didn't stop running. Every flash of lightning, I expected to see that face behind me. Every thunderclap, I thought I heard footsteps splashing through puddles. Gaining on me. By the time I reached their porch, I was sobbing, half hysterical. I pounded on their door until they answered, confused and terrified, calling the police. As I collapsed inside, when the officers arrived, they found my front door still wide open. Muddy footprints led from the porch to the staircase and up toward my bedroom window. But the trail stopped halfway up the wall, as if whoever made them had simply climbed straight into the air. I used to love driving at night. Empty highways, no traffic, just me and the hum of the tires against asphalt. But now, every time rain starts tapping against the windshield, I feel sick. Because of what happened last spring. It was around 11 p.m., late April. I was heading home from visiting a friend in the next county. The storm had come out of nowhere. 1 minute the sky was clear. The next it was pitch black, thunder rolling in the distance. By the time I hit the rural back roads, the rain was pouring so hard I could barely see past the hood of my car. Slowed to a crawl. My high beams only lit up walls of water, and every curve in the road felt sharper than I remembered. The trees lining the asphalt swayed violently, branches whipping overhead. My phone's GPS cut out completely, leaving me with nothing but muscle memory and a creeping sense of unease. That's when I saw him, a figure standing dead center in the road. I slammed the brakes, tires skidding on wet pavement. The car came to a stop just feet away. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. The man didn't move. He stood perfectly still in the headlights. Rain dripping from his hair, clothes clinging to his thin frame. His head was down, face hidden by the shadows. One arm hung limply at his side. The other was bent at an unnatural angle, like it had been broken. I rolled down my window an inch. Rain sprang in. "Hey, are you okay? Do you need help?" No response. I hesitated. Every instinct screamed at me to drive around him and keep going. But what if he was hurt? What if he'd been in an accident? I couldn't just leave him there. I stepped out of the car. The rain was ice cold, instantly soaking me through. I kept my distance, calling over the wind. "Do you need an ambulance?" That's when he raised his head, his face. There was something wrong with it. His features seemed too long, stretched somehow, like skin pulled over bone that didn't quite fit. His mouth opened, wide, far too wide, and he let out a sound I can't even describe. Not a scream, not a word, just wrong. He started running at me. I bolted back to the car, slipping on wet asphalt, fumbling with the handle. I barely got the door closed before he slammed into it, hard enough to rock the vehicle. His face hit the window, inches from mine, eyes wild, teeth bared. He pounded on the glass with his broken arm, bone visibly jutting from the skin, not even flinching. I threw the car into drive and floored it till the tires spun, water spraying, and then caught. The car lurched forward. I didn't look back. Not. Even when I heard him scream, that same inhuman sound, fading into the storm behind me, I drove until I saw lights. A diner, glowing warm and safe against the dark mess. I skidded into the lot, heart hammering, hand shaking so badly I could barely put the car in park. Inside. The handful of late-night customers stared as I stumbled in, dripping water across the floor. I babbled about a man in the road, broken, arm screaming. Someone called the police. When they arrived, I led them back to where it happened. There was nothing there. No man. No footprints. Not even a scuff mark on the wet asphalt. But as I got back into my car, ready to follow the cruiser into town, I noticed something in the rearview mirror, a handprint pressed into the inside of my back window.